Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. And this is Creative Imagination by Manly P. Hall. An article taken from The All-Seeing Eye, Volume 5, Number 3, December 1930. Creative Imagination by Manly P. Hall. There is no human faculty more powerful than imagination, but for lack of understanding, its forces are entirely wasted. Imagination is an instrument to the accomplishment of consciousness when we have become strong enough mentally to bind it to the service of reality. There is no greater menace to the well-being of mankind than a diseased or untrained imagination. It leads to every form of misery and excess and renders life intolerable. When trained, however, is not only a definite asset, but becomes a builder of character and a revealer of purpose. When we speak of a person having a fertile imagination, our adjective is more apt than we realize. For as we generate bodies through physical processes, so we continually generate thoughts. And by a master law of consequences, these thoughts become the agencies of a vast cosmic scheme. We all realize that thought is a thing, that the products of our mental chemistry are living, vital forces. But how to direct these forces for our self-improvement and perfection is a science too abstract and profound for the majority. The mentalist of Asia can, by the intensity of his concentration, create, for instance, a lotus bud and render it visible and apparently real to another individual who possesses no spiritual development. The Oriental knows that it is possible to build a thought form, and through the repetition of the fundamental idea, gradually intensify that thought form until it becomes a mental and apparently a physical reality. How to apply these magnificent universal laws to the remaking of the personal life, your life, is a relevant question. We all desire to be something which we are not. Some have realized already, the rest will ultimately discover that it is impossible to maintain a false position in nature, that the unreal destroys itself, finally reducing all to a common chaos. If an individual, through the exercise of will, thought, or some other part of the soul machinery, does temporarily assume a state unnatural to him or beyond his actual level of consciousness, an ultimate relapse is inevitable. The hybrid is an example of the inability of the unnatural to survive or propagate. In the remaking of a personality, it is unreasonable to believe that end can be achieved by simply superimposing some fantastic mental attitude over a life of excess or shortcoming. The improvement of self, if only possible, when the individual builds from the foundation upward, molding every characteristic and temperamental peculiarity into a new order of expression consistent with the end desired. If an inconsistency exists anywhere in the structure, the new personality will be an assumption and not a reality, and someday the mask will be pulled away to expose the real disposition behind. Personality is the product of the chemistry of impulse, and to attempt to acquire a new personality without a renovation of the entire disposition is to transgress the fundamental law of cause and effect. Self-improvement, then, is neither an attitude nor an affirmation, but rather a reconsecration of all of the various departments of life to a single, all-absorbing purpose. The yogins and sages of old had interesting thoughts on this subject, which it would well pay this generation to consider. When applied to idealism, imagination is a greater wonder worker than even the fakirs of India. We must begin our new personality first by visualizing and then by molding a new self from the abstract substance of thought. We visualize ourselves as our ideal, embodying the virtues we admire, fully expressing the best and the truest within us. By its peculiar workings, imagination permits us abstractly to envision ourselves according to our every whim and fancy. Many will think it impossible to build a new personality out of the empty air, but this is due to ignorance of the subtle forces existing in what we please to term space. It is just as possible to build a personality according to our thoughts as it is to see some non-existing creature in a dream or vision. The monk in his cell meditated so intensively upon celestial concerns that he actually saw the heavens open and saints and angels descending in a heavenly host. The vision was more real than the objects of physical sight, but was simply a thought form rendered vivid by continuous repetition. Consider the problem of habits. Repetition creates habits, and these in turn become dominating factors in our lives, so that we finally lose both the desire and power to break them. Habits are of many kinds, mostly objectionable. But through repetition, we can also develop commendable and useful habits. He who has dedicated his life to a definite effort at self-improvement and would build himself into his ideal should begin by gradually separating the elements of his personality into two distinct parts. This segregation is purely a mental process. He classifies or sorts the qualities of his disposition to determine which belong to the new ideal to which he aspires and which do not. Those useful to the new state he builds up and fortifies through effort. Those which must ultimately be eliminated, he permits to remain part of the old personality to be sloughed off in the reconstruction of character. The mind of the aspirant then begins the definite process of creating a new abstract self, incorporating into it all desirable characteristics and all the nobler talents and artistry which the soul possesses. Day by day and year by year, this new invisible personality increases in strength and dignity, daily becoming an even greater equation in the physical life of its creator. This new ideal self becomes a haven from the dissension, discord, and perverseness of the physical world. There is no reason why every individual capable of thinking cannot establish within himself a sphere of beauty where he can take refuge when the pressure of his physical environment threatens the integrity of his higher nature. The danger of idealism is that, having once tasted of its spiritual bliss, we shrink from contact with our physical environment. We are tempted to neglect physical responsibilities. We plot and plan to escape life. This destroys the balance of existence, for only the normal and the equipoised can know perfection. Thus, in the building of this invisible soul man, contact should be maintained with the realities of animal life. Instead of luring us away from the responsibilities of daily life, the new personality should rather contribute materially to its efficiency. This imagination-created body is not a substitute for physical life, but is designed to give opportunity for expression to those abstract, creative, and idealistic tendencies denied by modern materialism. When unhappiness assails the outer personality, this inner self is tranquil. When anger reigns without, it is at peace. That which disturbs the inferior nature cannot affect this ideal. In comparison to the outer personality, this new inner being is a god, for, like God, it is the noblest work of man. It has required billions of years to lift man to his present estate from the tiny atom of space. The struggle for survival is one with the struggle of internal impulses for expression. Everything that man has is the product of concentration upon a need. We have hands and feet simply because through ages we yearned for certain members whose necessity had been demonstrated. Our hands and feet are the result of the will to move. Our voice has come from the will to express, our mind from the will to think, our eyes from the will to see, and every part and organ from the repeated demands of an indomitable will. This will can go further. It can become the will to perfection. We come to forget our lesser selves by remembering our greater selves. Every individual can change the whole tenor of life by simply remembering the good and forgetting the rest. He can actually lift himself up as his own bootstraps to an estate proximate to divinity with the factors of imagination and will. It is a philosophical adage that we are always near to that which we are like. If we are God-like, we are near to God. For to become like a thing means simply to throw the emphasis of the will upon similars. By dreaming of ourselves as gods and then striving to make our dream come true, we build realities into this ideal we have formulated until finally both the dreamer and his dream are one. We possess the divine prerogative to dare to create. We can create anything we choose to create, but woe unto us if our will is not illumined by noble and unselfish purpose. Recognition of the greatest good is an achievement only surpassed by the will to mold ourselves according to that ideal. There are still nobler mansions to be built for the soul. The dreamer fails because he never can make his dreams come true. The philosopher knows, however, that any ideal which the mind can conceive can be realized. If we can sense within ourselves this noble state, then a determined will has the power finally to make us one with the greatest good which we are capable of knowing. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.